Hello, hi, welcome back. Give me a sec. Hello, happy Friday. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to be rude and then just come on here and then just pop off. Yay! I see Patty in here. Yay, Patty, where have you been? I miss you. I hope you can stay awake for the Melly After Dark after this. I was gonna go straight into doing the After Dark because it's only 7 p.m. here in California, longest day ever. I'm gonna turn off Nightbot for a minute. Hello, welcome back. So hello, Patty. I saw Lexi pop in here. Hello, Storm. Okay, I think everyone felt like it was the longest Friday ever because me and all the girls at work were like, what the hell is going on? It was the longest day ever. Thank you, Lexi. I was gonna hop into hello, everyone. Welcome. If you don't know, my name is Melly. We cover true crime here. Weekends, we get a little wild and do Melly After Dark. So I'm gonna start off tonight by reading the Luigi Mangione new court document. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with what this whole case. It is a federal case, and Luigi Mangione, is the person who killed Brian Thompson, the UnitedHealthcare CEO. And there's a lot of controversy around that. It involves a lot of politics, I believe, healthcare, wealth, corporate companies, medical companies, just there's a lot behind it. But there's also, a lot of conspiracies and theories that maybe he didn't do it. Maybe he's innocent. They set him up. Maybe it's somebody else. There's all kinds of things. And I have covered that case here before, but I'm really excited to go through this document. It's really long. I don't know that I'm going to read the whole thing tonight. I might split it between tonight and tomorrow morning, because part of it is like basically his manifesto and the other part is like journal entries. And so I think the journal entries might take a little bit longer because it's his writing. So we're going to have to like read through it. But I did at least want to get through half of the document. This was filed on the 4th of June. So I'm a little late to it, but I had no idea. Let me get the actual date. I didn't know this was out until a couple of days ago. And yeah, June 4th, 2025. And I'm shook. This lays out exactly what happened, why they think he did it, his journal entries, prove a bunch of stuff. So I think it's going to be a really good document to get through. So thank you for being here. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. After this, we go hang out, drink, and do whatever on a Melly After Dark, which is still here on my channel. But it's more fun over there. Whereas to right now, we're just going to read through this document, get through it, get all the facts of the case, and move along. I'm going to read, I've been obsessed from the announcement because I've fought for insurance forever, and UHC was my biggest news. There's a lot of, it's unfortunate that health insurance and healthcare access isn't accessible to everyone. Or it's super expensive, right? Hey, Dodge. I'm just saying hi to everyone. Hello, abuelitas, buzzballs. Yes, I got the big one. We're going big tonight. Okay, let's get on the document. Hello. Okay, let's get started. So Joel J. Seidemann, an attorney admitted to practice before the courts of the state, affirms under penalty of perjury that I am the assistant district attorney and senior trial counsel in New York County assigned to this case and am familiar with its facts. 2, this affirmation is submitted in response to the defendant's omnibus motion in which the defendant seeks suppression of statements, suppression of physical evidence, preclusion of non-eyewitness identification, testimony, dismissal of the indictment, and other relief. Number 3, the people's response as key to the paragraphs in the defendant's motion papers is as follows. The motion's response to defendant's motion to suppress statements to law enforcement. Answering defendant's motion. I literally texted my coworker and said, right. As the automatic discovery form, the ADF indicates the people intend to offer in their direct case at trial statements that defendant made to law enforcement. Defendant asserts that these statements were product of custodial interrogation without Miranda warnings. The people deny the factual allegations underlying those claims and consent to a Huntley hearing regarding them. They didn't Miranda him? I would be shooketh if they didn't do that. Thank you, Dodge. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being one of the biggest supporters of my channel. I appreciate you, Dodge. Thank you. Gifted 10 memberships right off the bat. Hello, 10 new members. Welcome to Mellyverse. I hope you're ready for it. Thank you, Dodge. I see a lot of people that I recognize become members, so that's awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, let's get started. As the ADF indicates, the people intend to offer at trial certain tangible evidence. Defendant moves to suppress evidence recovered from his backpack, alleging that the people violated his constitutional rights by their failure to obtain a search warrant. The people deny the factual allegations underlying those claims and consent to a map hearing regarding them. Please let me know what you guys think. Do you think that was him who did this? The whole thing of it all. If you watch the clip, was it CNN or ABC? I can't remember. One of them, I watched it like 200 times and it was not redacted or blurred. It was like right before it got blurred. And I thought that was intense. I don't know what I think yet. But I do know that corruption runs far and deep. So that's all I have to say. The people's response to defendant's motion to preclude introduction of non-eyewitness identification testimony at trial. This is going to be a big trial. I might have to see if I can stream this one live. Defendant moves to preclude the people from calling witnesses who are sufficiently familiar with him to assist the jury in identifying him in certain video footage collected by NYPD. In People versus Mosley, the Court of Appeals indicated that one of the factors for determining the admissibility of lay non-eyewitnesses indication testimony is whether the defendant's appearance changed between the time of the crime and the time of the trial. This factor is unknowable at this time. The admissibility of such testimony, therefore, cannot be properly assessed until the time of trial. Factual and procedural background. This is when it gets crazy. It doesn't select those that are in the chat. I know, I wish it did, Dodge, or that we had a choice to select. That would also be kind of cool. It was not legal. They planted stuff. Storm, I feel ya. I'm right there with you. That's what I'm leaning towards. I don't know. Let's see. In December 2024, Mr. Brian Thompson was the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, a company that provides health services to tens of millions of Americans. UHC has approximately 400,000 employees, and although headquartered in Minneapolis, has offices throughout the United States. It is the largest health insurance company in the United States and the fourth largest company by market cap behind Amazon, Google, and Walmart. In addition to providing insurance to individuals and companies, UHC provides government-sponsored insurance to citizens in the form of Medicare and Medicaid. I will have to say, but look, this is not because I'm reading this and it involves Luigi Mangione, but UnitedHealthcare actually pays shit. I work in the healthcare field, and they're one of the worst insurances to work with. So not that I'm saying that it makes anything right. I'm just saying. I'm just pointing out the facts that I see every day. They are shitty payers. They don't want to pay for anything, even if you have insurance and you pay for your plan. I don't know. YouTube's probably gonna like demonetize or block me because I'm over here talking shit. But yeah, don't get UnitedHealthcare. Don't get UnitedHealthcare insurance. Don't do it, girls and boys. Don't do it. Just kidding. If you want to do what you want. Don't listen to me. I'm not giving you advice. This is just my opinion. Hello, F. Chupin. Yeah, they are horrible. What's new? Yeah, okay, so you guys agree. The CEO is doing, Yeah, Lexi, when you look deep into people's past, honey, let me tell you. Okay, let's move on. Mr. Thompson came to New York the first week of December 2024 to attend UnitedHealthcare's investor conference, which was to be held at the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan on December 4th, 2024. The yearly investor conference was announced on UHC's public website and was attended by approximately 300 institutional investors, UHC's board members, and 50 of UHC's executives. Mr. Thompson was one of the presenters of the conference, and he was set to arrive at the Hilton Hotel before 7 a.m. on December 4th, 2024, to prepare for his presentation. He arrived in front of the Hilton Hotel at approximately 6:45 a.m. Defendant, dressed entirely in black and wearing a black backpack, quickly crossed the street and approached Mr. Thompson from behind. Defendant drew a homemade 𝐁𝐞𝐥𝐿, which was equipped with a homemade silencer, and shot Mr. Thompson once in the back and once in the leg from point-blank range, thereby unaliving him. Following the shooting, defendant ran from across the scene and during his flight dropped a blue Motorola cell phone that was later recovered and examined by law enforcement. Video surveillance from before the shooting, I'm so bad with YouTube. They're so the pew pew showed defendant drinking from an ethos water bottle and then discarding the bottle in trash near the shooting location. A canvas of the defendant's path of flight after the revealed that he had discarded the backpack he was wearing during this incident in Central Park, which contained a black jacket and a piece of chewed gum, among other things. I just have to say, why would someone leave behind so much evidence? If they were a professional unaliver set out to kill professionals, why did he leave the water bottle behind? Why is he dropping the phone? Why is he leaving his gum? I don't know. Mr. Thompson had been with a 9mm semi-automatic. The bullet that unalived him entered the side of the back before piercing his liver, going through his heart, and exiting the front left side of the chest. Although NYPD arrived within minutes and immediately summoned EMS, Mr. Thompson was dead prior to EMS arrival. Efforts to resuscitate the 50-year-old guest to our city were to no avail. Defendant did not say a word to Mr. Thompson before assassinating him, nor did defendant take any property from Mr. Thompson, who was wearing a Rolex watch after shooting him. For several days, numerous NYPD detectives and police officers worked around the clock to trace the shooter's movements in New York City from his arrival at Port Authority Bus Terminal on November 24th, 2024, until his flight on December 4th, 2024. The investigation showed that at 7:47 p.m. on December 3rd, 2024, the night before the execution, the defendant was walking on West 54th Street and 6th Avenue, adjacent to the Hilton Hotel. He appeared to be talking on his cell phone, and as he walked down the street, Mr. Thompson walked past him in the opposite direction. The next day, on December 4th, the defendant left the hostel where he was staying very early in the morning, arriving by bicycle at the Hilton Hotel around 5:50 a.m. At 5:52 a.m., the defendant entered the hotel only to exit around 6 a.m. By approximately 6:22 a.m., the defendant was lying in wait across the street from the Hilton in a plaza next to 𝐁𝐞𝐜𝐵 Theater. Defendant waited at that location until 6:45 a.m. when he saw Mr. Thompson walking across the street near the hotel. Defendant quickly crossed the street and approached Mr. Thompson from behind, shooting him in the back from a distance approximately 3 to 6 feet. The police recovered ballistic evidence from the crime scene. On one shell casing, quote-unquote, DEN, D-E-N, had been written in black marker. On another, depose, had been written in black marker. And on a live cartridge, delay, had been written in a black marker. CEO had a lead allergy. Here's viral positive. He seems so much smarter than that dude. I think numerous people were involved. Yes. NYPD conducted an extensive video canvass entailing review of hundreds of hours of footage from across all over the city. The relevant footage revealed that starting on November 24th, 2024, the defendant had been staying at the Hilton Inn, New York City. Wait, Hilton Inn? No, HI New York City hostel on the Upper West Side. When he checked in, he used a fake New Jersey driver's license bearing the name Mark Rosario. Selected portions of the video and still photos compiled by NYPD were released to the media in order to help locate the shooter, and reports of the homicide received extensive media coverage nationwide. On December 9th, 2024, the defendant was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, after being spotted at a local McDonald's by a McDonald's employee who recognized him from television coverage about the case. When the defendant was arrested, police recovered a 9mm with a 3D printed receiver, the housing for the gun's main components, 2 ammunition magazines, multiple live cartridges, a homemade silencer, and a fake New Jersey ID in the name of Mark Rosario, just like the ID that was used at the hostel. Altoona police also recovered approximately $7,800 in cash, along with some foreign currency and a passport from the defendant at the time of his arrest. In addition, at the time of his arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania, the Altoona Police Department recovered a red notebook that the defendant used as his diary. The diary contained several entries, including 2 entries on separate dates that explained in unambiguous terms the defendant's intent and motive in deliberately assassinating the CEO of the country's largest health insurance company. The entry dated August 15th, 2024 reads in a pertinent part as follows, quote unquote, "I finally feel confident about what I will do. The details are coming together, and I don't feel any doubt about whether it's right or justified. I'm glad in a way that I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about UHC. KMD would have been an unjustified catastrophe that would be perceived mostly as sick, but more importantly, unhelpful. What would do nothing to spread awareness and improve people's lives. The target is insurance. It checks every box." That's crazy. This is crazy. On October 22nd, 2024, approximately 1.5 months before Brian Thompson's assassination, the defendant again stated his motives for the assassination. The defendant wrote, 1.5 months, the investor conference is a true windfall. It embodies everything wrong with our health system. And most importantly, the message becomes self-evident. The problem with most revolutionary acts is the message is lost on normies. For example, Ted K makes some good points on the future of humanity, but to make his point, he indiscriminately mail bombs innocents. Normies categorize him as an insane serial killer, focus on the act of atrocities themselves, and dismiss his ideas. And most importantly, by committing indiscriminate atrocities, he becomes a monster, which makes his ideas those of a monster, no matter how true. He crosses the line from the revolutionary anarchist to the T word, the wrong thing a person can be, is what is in the journal. They left out way too much. Wow, he had enough with the insurance agencies denying people that needed their meds and surgeries. Defendant continued, quote unquote, "This is the problem with most militants that rebel against often real injustices. They commit an atrocity whose horror either outweighs the impact of their message or whose distance from their message prevents normies from connecting the dots. Consequently, the revolutionary idea becomes associated with extremism, incoherence, or evil, an idea that no reasonable member of society could approve of. Rather than win public support, they lose it. The revolutionary actions are actively counterproductive." Luigi Mangione is smart, I think, huh? Hey, 𝐭𝐤𝐥𝐥𝐲. Defendant went on to ask himself, quote unquote, "So you say you want to rebel against the deadly greed-fueled health insurance cartel. Do you bomb the headquarters? No. Bombs equals terrorism. Such actions appear the unjustified anger of someone who simply got sick, had bad luck, and took their frustration out on the insurance industry while recklessly endangering countless employees. The defendant decided that instead of carrying out a bombing, one should whack the CEO and at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence. Most importantly, the point is self-evident. The point is made in the news headline. Insurance CEO killed at investors conference. It brings light to the event itself. A bunch of suits from the JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley meeting at a fancy NYC conference to discuss growth rations and MLR of a company that literally extracts human life force for money. It conveys a greedy bastard that had it coming. Members of the public can focus on greed, on the event through reasonable, acceptable discussion. Finally, the hit is a real blow to the company financials. All those analysts and institutional investors who came to be wooed by the insurance execs, that opportunity is snuffed in an instant. Instead, the company becomes a hot topic, perhaps the best to invest elsewhere and let that one cool off. That was part of his journal entry. Wow. I don't know. Do we really believe he wrote that? Do you believe he's guilty? He definitely thought it through before doing it. Okay, he was definitely sending a message. Seems like he wanted to start a movement. Yeah. Photocopies of defendant's manifesto as contained in his red notebook are attached here as to Exhibit A. We are going to go through those. At the end of the defendant's arrest by the Altoona Police Department, his possessions also included a note addressed to the FBI that reads as follows: to the feds. I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some strangling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty good locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not much info there. I do apologize for any strife or trauma, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. UHC is the 5th largest company in the US by market cap, behind Apple, Google, and Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these mafiosos have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed decades ago, and the problem simply remains. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutally honesty. P.S. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded. My own ATM withdrawals. What? Okay, I love everything he says in this, if it's truly him. He's absolutely speaking facts on the healthcare system. He really is. Illegally detained, illegally searched, illegally arrested. It's mind-blowing. Not human life. It's all about greed. This looks nothing like him. The guy at the hotel. Right? I thought that was a female. When I first saw the picture of him at the hostel or whatever, the hotel, I was like, that looked like a female. And you know what? It could be AI. AI. Right? We're watching Diddy trial and AI, like anything can be possible. I'm going to have to censor myself on this case of being in the public insurance. Which? I'm sorry to hear that, but I would love to hear your opinions. He's extremely smart, but I don't believe it was him. I don't believe it was him either. A photocopy of the defendant's confession to the FBI and is attached as Exhibit B. Microscopic analysis of the ballistic evidence revealed that the shell casings recovered at the scene were fired by the GUN that was in the defendant's possession at the time of his arrest. Additionally, DNA analysis showed that the defendant's DNA was on his cell phone, ethos water bottle, knapsack, gum, and the GUN wrapper discarded by the shooter during his flight from the assassination. NYPD's latent print unit identified the defendant's fingerprints on the ethos water bottle and a kind candy bar wrapper that the defendant discarded in a garbage can in the plaza adjacent to the Ziegfeld Theater prior to the shooting. Defendant did not have health insurance with the UHC during the period of the time from 2014 to 2024. On December 17, 2024, the New York County Grand Jury voted to indict defendant for 1 count of murder in the first degree and 1 count of murder in the second degree as a crime of T under PL, and 1 count of murder in the second degree under PL, 2 counts of criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree, 1 count of criminal possession of the weapon in third degree, 2 counts of criminal possession of the weapon in third degree, 1 count of criminal possession of a weapon in third degree under PL, 1 count of criminal possession of a weapon in the fourth degree, and 1 count of criminal possession of forged instrument in the second degree. Wow. Defendant's motion to dismiss the terrorism-related charges in the indictment should be denied. I mean, the insurance companies are all about greed and not human rights. Absolutely. Those pictures are not the same person, in my opinion. I agree. The identity of Brian Thompson's assassin is no mystery. The grand jury presentation throughout established defendant's identity as the man who plotted for months to assassinate Brian Thompson before following through on that plot in the early morning hours of December 4th, 2024, by shooting the father of two in the back at point-blank range. The defendant's words, written both in the manifesto and in a confession letter addressed to the FBI, establish his responsibility for his vicious crime. Both of those writings were in the defendant's possession at the time of his arrest. The Altoona police also recovered a homemade 𝐁𝐞𝐥𝐿 from the defendant, and sure enough, the ballistic analysis revealed that it was the 𝐁𝐞𝐥𝐿 that had fired the bullets that killed Mr. Thompson. Additional forensic evidence recovered by the NYPD in the form of items discovered by defendant at the crime scene and during his flight were all tied to him through DNA comparison and fingerprints. And hundreds of hours of video footage retrieved by the NYPD detectives tracked the shooter's movements, further establishing that it was the defendant who murdered 50-year-old Brian Thompson as he strolled down a midtown street in Manhattan. If there were ever an open and shut case pointing to the defendant's guilt, this case is that case. Simply put, one would be hard-pressed to find a case with such overwhelming evidence of guilt as to the identity of the unaliver and the premeditated nature of the assassination. Defendant's murder of Brian Thompson was an act of terrorism. The evidence before the grand jury thoroughly supported the conclusion that there was reasonable cause to believe that the defendant's murder of Mr. Thompson was an act of terrorism. States in relevant part that a person commits first-degree murder when 1, with intent to cause the death of another person, he causes the death of such a person, and the victim was killed in furtherance of an act of terrorism. And PL explains that an act of, I'm going to say T, means an act undertaken to intimidate or coerce civilian population, influence the policy unit of government by intimidation or coercion, and affects the conduct of unit government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping. Similarly, PL and 49.25 combine to provide that a person commits second-degree murder as an act of terrorism, and when he intentionally kills somebody with the intent to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policy of unit of government by intimidation or coercion, or affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping. The grand jury presentation overwhelmingly established reasonable cause to believe that the defendant acted with requisite terroristic intent. Not that I'm saying it's not like awful what he did, but allegedly. Is this a terroristic unit? I mean, I feel like what is happening right now over in Iran, like what's happening with the protests, like those I think are like intense too. So I don't know. I was screaming that before he was ever arrested. Hey, Dustin. Yep, that too. I was like, why are you showing pictures of two different guys? I get why he did it. As the statutory language makes clear, terroristic intent can be satisfied by proof of any one or combination of the three aforementioned intents. In this regard, this rule is similar to People versus Watson, where the First Department held that, quote unquote, a conviction of larceny, whether by false promise or false pretense, constitutes only one offense. Thus, juror anonymity is not required as a particular method by which the larceny was committed. In any event, the evidence before the grand jury provided reasonable cause to believe that the defendant had each of the three relevant intents. Intent can be inferred from the act itself or from the defendant's conduct in the surrounding circumstances. Additionally, the law permits a fact finder to, quote unquote, infer that a person intends that which is natural and necessary and probable consequences of the act done by him. The grand jury was instructed on the permissive inference regarding intent. New York Standard Criminal Jury Instructions on intent reflect the case law discussed above. The expanded charge on intent reads as follows. The question naturally arises as to how to determine whether or not the defendant had the intent required for the commission of a true crime. To make that determination in this case, you must decide if the required intent can be inferred by reasonable doubt from the proven facts. In doing so, you may consider the person's conduct and all of the circumstances surrounding that conduct, including but not limited to What, if anything, did the person do or say? What result, if any, followed the person's conduct? And was the result the natural, necessary, and probable consequence of that conduct? I do. Yeah. The terroristic intent behind the assassination of Brian Thompson can be inferred from the defendant's act alone. The shooting itself speaks volumes of the defendant's intent. The defendant chose to shoot the CEO of the United States' largest health insurance company in front of the hotel where the company was about to conduct its annual investor conference. The defendant chose to execute Brian Thompson in Midtown Manhattan, a place widely recognized as a media capital of the world. There was no evidence before the grand jury that the defendant shot Brian Thompson in the back because of the personal vendetta, nor was there any evidence that the defendant knew Brian Thompson or had ever met him. Wait, there was no evidence before the grand jury that the defendant shot. Okay, so it wasn't a personal vendetta. Nor was there any evidence that he knew him, nor was there any evidence that the defendant had ever received insurance from him. The defendant's apparent goal in assassinating Mr. Thompson thus was to send a message. Wait. So there's like no evidence other than what they have, like the evidence, the gum wrapper, whatever, the phone, that fake picture. Where's like the motive for it? Because they're saying that he wrote in this journal, but who would write all of that and just like turn it into the FBI? Like, you know what I mean? I don't believe something doesn't seem right. I don't know. The video of the crime establishes that this was not a typical street crime. Defendant did not say a word to Brian Thompson before shooting him in the back. After Mr. Thompson's body crumbled and he fell to the pavement in extremis, defendant casually walked over to the body, apparently to make certain that Mr. Thompson was dead. The fact that the defendant left Mr. Thompson's Rolex watch on his dead body demonstrates that robbery was not the motivation behind the assassination. Finally, defendant communicated the motive behind the assassination by marking 2 shell casings with the words "den," "depose," and marking "delay" on the live cartridge. Thus, the particulars of the shooting itself, its target, its timing, its location, and the markings left on the ballistic all made clear that the defendant's intent was not to settle a personal vendetta or to steal something, but to violently broadcast a social and political message to the public at large. They, like so many, they get sick of the filth greed of these insurance company. They planted evidence, says Storm, which says the lack of actual medical care facts. Toxicas here. Good to see you. Defendant's writing confirmed the political and ideological motivation behind his assassination of Brian Thompson. The defendant's intentions were obvious from his acts, but his writings served to make those intentions explicit. Defendant made crystal clear in his manifesto that his target was the insurance industry. It checks every box, he said. And more specifically, his targets include quote-unquote bean counters and quote-unquote an analyst and institutional investors who the defendant hoped to drive out of investing in the company and industry. Even prior to August 15th, 2024, he researched UnitedHealthcare. Having no business relationship with them, he chose UHC solely because they were the largest health insurance company and one of the country's largest companies by market cap. UHC became the symbol of what the defendant characterized as, quote unquote, the deadly greed-fueled health insurance cartel. The defendant's writing further showed that he hoped the murder of another human being would trigger the widespread action. His entry of October 22nd, 2024, also shows that he was seeking to reach the largest possible audience by, quote unquote, whacking the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. Defendant was hoping for a headline that read, quote unquote, insurance CEO killed at the annual investors conference. Defendant held out hope as reflected in his writing and in his manifesto that the murder would achieve multiple purposes. It would intimidate all employees of the health insurance business. It would cause the members of the public to focus on the greed of the health insurance industry, and it would intimidate investors and financial analysts from investing in the industry. And in defendant's confession to the FBI, he expressed no remorse for taking of a human life, referring to Brian Thompson as a quote-unquote parasite and a quote-unquote mafioso. He insisted that it had to be done because these parasites had it coming. He listed the deficiencies in the healthcare system, noting that Rosenthal and Moore had written about the corruption and greed decades ago, but the problem remained. Having shot and killed a man in the cold blood, he patted himself on the back for his evil act and saying, quote unquote, "I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty," were his words. I mentioned this at the beginning of my life. I work in healthcare, and let me tell you, insurance is, I can't even tell you. We could have a whole live on it. I'm disgusted. Yeah, it sucks. I feel bad for a lot of our patients. I feel bad for my boss. I feel bad for companies who have to deal with the insurance side of things. And my heart breaks for anyone who can't get insurance. And who can't afford it. You know, you can work, make a really good money, work full-time, pay your taxes, and you still can't even get freaking health insurance. And now you can't even get like Medicaid and Medicare. It's like you have to basically give up like your main organs to get coverage from them. These CEOs were all flipping out. If I were them, I would stay inside. And he didn't lie. Years of lives. Very corrupt insurance companies, medical ones too. Yeah, abuelitas, I was just telling everyone UHC used to be good and now they're the worst. I constantly am dealing with them and sending them demand letters and whatever at work. It's really a pain in the ass. All of these writings convey one clear message, that the murder of Brian Thompson was intended to bring about revolutionary change to the healthcare industry. Defendants' targeting of UHC had nothing to do with anything that the company had done to him personally. In fact, he had no business relationship with the company. Brian Thompson and UHC were simply symbols of the healthcare industry and what defendant considered a deadly greed-fueled cartel. I think YouTube likes that word. Defendant's intent is obvious from the natural and probable consequences of his acts. To a limited extent, the defendant achieved his dastardly goals by inspiring a vocal minority of individuals to engage in a broader campaign of threats of violence against UHC employees and other health insurance workers. An executive of the UnitedHealthcare Group testified before the grand jury on December 17, 2024, only 2 weeks after Brian had been assassinated, about threats aimed at other UHC executives in the aftermath of Brian Thompson's execution. That executive detailed how posters featuring the word "deny, defend, impose" words, nearly identical to those that had appeared on the ammunition used to kill Brian, appeared in New York City with the pictures and names of 2 other UHC executives, alongside a picture of Brian Thompson with an X through it. I'm not here to say that like UHC or whatever insurance company is like caught up in like some bad stuff. You know, I don't know. It is alleged that there's word on the street about some of these executives, you know, doing things and like things like that. None of it is true. None of it is facts. It's just my opinion, what I have heard and researched as I'm getting another live of this ready. You know, I don't know. There's usually big groups of these kind of mafiosos end up being involved with like or like P. Diddy business or like raping children or like involved with, like I said, child or like the dark web. Not saying that UHC was doing that, but it's interesting that, you know, these UHC executives are basically being targeted. Are other executives from other insurance being targeted? I'm curious if any of them have been reported to the court. UHC doctors and civilians who were assigned to send out denial letters to customers feared for their safety and requested that they not be required to sign their name to denials. The company acceded to such request, even though certain state laws required that name appear on such letters. Some UHC physicians quit their job out of retribution. The company advised its employees not to wear company-branded clothing. UHC's call center specialist received death threats. The grand jury heard a small sampling of these calls. During one call, the call center specialist asked, "To whom do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?" And the caller responded, "You're gonna hang." You are going to hang. You know what that means? That means the killing of Brian Thompson was just a start. There's a lot more that are going to be taken out. The only question is whether you're going to be the collateral damage when it's done or not. there were several calls of the similar tenor. Online threats prompted UHC to pull pictures of its senior executives from their websites. Plainclothes policemen were hired to protect the UHC headquarters in Minnesota. There were threats made to employees at UHC's Penn Station in New York City, and 40 of the company's executives received personal security. One executive who received threats dyed her hair and moved into a temporary home out of fear for her safety. Wait. Now, are they really scared, or are they really scared about what could possibly come out? Even with insurance, you're screwed. I just went through an injury that needed surgery without insurance, and as I predicted, cash pay was cheaper. Yeah, Storm, I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. But you're not wrong. The business side of health insurance is so hard to stomach. I was denied 2 surgeries because of my crap insurance and still to this day need them after 10 years. The surgeon refused to do them. I was in shock. Yeah, it's a thing. It has to be. I know that sucks, but like, for example, my boss, he's a surgeon, and he like, he'll do these things and like on good faith, and insurances like UHC authorizes these things, and then they refuse to pay. It's like really effed up. And what are like the surgeons supposed to do in the middle of replacing an organ? You know what I mean? Like, oh, let me stop halfway there as I'm pulling out your, I don't know, rib to get to your whatever spine so I can do surgery for you. And because, you know, your insurance suddenly said they're not going to pay. It's ridiculous. And total mine was under $5,000. It was the wrong prices. Let's see. UHC was not the only insurance company targeted. Posters threatening Emblem Health CEOs were posted outside the company's Manhattan headquarters on December 10th, 2024, bearing the CEO's picture and stating, quote unquote, healthcare CEOs should not feel safe. Deny, defend, and depose. I don't even know who that is. Emblem? Unless they're under some, like, that's a third-party name or something. Never heard of them. Emblem Insurance? Or are they just, that's like an umbrella term, you know? Not them out here changing their names all of a sudden. I'm just kidding. And so the defendant's intent was obvious from 1, his actions, 2, his writings, and 3, the natural and probable and actual consequences of his actions. Murder as an act of terrorism does not require the murder of multiple victims. Really? An act of terrorism can just be on one person? I thought it would involve people as a whole, a community as a whole, a civilian government as a whole, the people of the government. I don't know what, I thought it was like more than one person. It's like the whole Diddy thing. Like, can it really be RICO with just one person? Isn't that like an enterprise? It's called an organization for a reason. I don't know. Defendant nonetheless insists the grand jury lacked reasonable cause to believe that he acted with terroristic intent. At the outset, defendant claims that the grand jury presentation was legally insufficient because the terrorism statutes require attacks on multiple civilians, and the defendant only directed his premeditated murderous intent at a single individual. I was just saying. The defendant claims the grand jury presentation was legally insufficient. The terrorism statutes require attacks on multiple civilians. So basically what I was saying was right. The defendant further claims that he did not intend to intimidate or coerce the civilian population on the ground that only certain kinds of defined classes, such as gender, race, nationality, ethnicity, religion, or the like, count as civilian populations within the meaning of the relevant statutes. He also claims the grand jury presentation is deficient since his manifesto did not specifically express intent to coerce or intimidate UHC employees, and since the defendant never released his manifesto to the public. Furthermore, defendant seeks to blame law enforcement for intimidating or coercing a civilian population, claiming that law enforcement should not have shared with the public information about the tragic circumstances of Mr. Thompson's murder. Wait, what? The defendant seeks to blame law enforcement for intimidating or coercing a civilian population, claiming that law enforcement should not have shared that because it creates panic, terror, chaos. Kind of like what's going on with the protests, right? Is it really helping now, or is it just creating such more of a violent environment, in my opinion? Emblem is ABCD. Oh, okay. Hey, Jojo. This is not work for did so much to get everything to the insurance. She. Oh. Puff's Enterprise is coming out. Defendants place much reliance on the legislative history of the PL article in claiming that the premeditated murder of Brian Thompson and furtherance of a revolutionary and anarchistic plan to target the health insurance industry falls outside the definition of terrorism. Simply put, defendant is wrong. Furthermore, for the reference of revolutionary anarchistic plan to target the health and care industry falls outside the definition of terrorism. Simply put, the defendant is wrong. Both the legislative history of the statute and the Court of Appeals decision in Morales demonstrate with total clarity that the statute was specifically designed to punish as acts of terrorism and kinds of acts committed in this case. Morales explains that the definitional provisions of Penn Law article were drawn from the federal definition of international terrorism. Those federal anti-statutes were in turn designed to criminalize acts such as the detonation of bombs in a metropolitan area or the deliberate assassinations of persons to strike fears into others to deter them from exercising their rights. The bolded language clearly describes defendant's conduct here. Wait. So the bolded language is this: the deliberate assassinations of a person to strike fear into others to deter them from exercising their rights. How about our rights that you give us health insurance and stop making it impossible? How about that? What about that right? Right to decent healthcare access? Oh, hell no. Why am I siding over here with Luigi Mangione? The bolded language clearly describes the defendant's conduct here. Aside from the defendant's obvious intent to intimidate the employees of UHC and other health insurance company, it is abundantly clear that Brian Thompson's execution was designed to intimidate investors and analysts from advising their clients to invest in health insurance companies. Hey, gas mask. Protests detour us from the bill that the Congress is trying to reverse Robin Hood. He does. Oh, okay. I'm seeing what Lexi needed to do. Exactly, Melly. Yeah. No, it's Mars' cousin Luigi. He's met with the insurance commissioner and she told him he was wrong. She has a business degree and no medical experience. Oh, free Luigi, says gas mask. Free Luigi. Okay, well, I don't know if I'm necessarily on free Luigi, but I mean, pretty much. You know, Luigi has $1 million in a fund for him. Yeah. What has Wade Wilson got to say about that? I bet Wade Wilson is hella pissed. Wade Wilson's like, I want that money. Definitely free Luigi. You know what? Luigi looks good too. Just free the man. Just free him. Defendant specifically stated as much in his writings. He explained that the best way to, quote unquote, rebel against the deadly greed-fueled health insurance cartel was to whack the CEO. He expressly targeted the health insurance industry, lamenting the past efforts to raise the public's awareness about that the industry were fruitless. Defendant's choice of the occasion for the assassination, the investor conference, likewise demonstrated his concerted effort to broadcast his message of ideological intimidation as broadly and loudly as possible. He characterized the investor conference as a true windfall because assassinating the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention would make this point self-evident, so that it would be understood from, quote unquote, the news headline insurance CEO killed at annual investors conference, and how he celebrated how the assassination at that particular time and place would, quote unquote, bring to light the event itself. Do we really believe he sat there and wrote this in his notebook, that they suddenly have releasing all his true deep, dark secrets? Like they couldn't just plant a notebook in a diary? Do we really think Luigi sat there and said, this is what I want the headline to be? The insurance CEO, like, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that's what a manifesto is, right? I don't really know. What do you think? Have his motives been admittedly, or is this all superstition? Yeah, they're going basically off of allegedly what's in his little notebook. Yeah, I'm like, shit. I hope they wrote even my notebook. My diary full of secrets. The police wrote it. Yeah, he's just sitting there being like, I did it, I did it, I did it. Yeah, I don't believe it. What happens when the evidence was found? Table misses the freak offs, tossed it in. Why did he leave all the evidence? Like, if he was like they say here that it was intent, and he was like on that level, why would he drop his phone, his water bottle, his food wrappers, and then just like walk all up into the McDonald's and ask for a cheeseburger? Like, this case is all confusing. The cops didn't write that. Who did, Storm? They can FK right off, bring on the trial. I know. I can't wait to see this trial. The pack left doesn't make sense, but it could be. I'm not sure though. Who's that person in the picture in the hostel? I want to see if they have that picture of who I thought looked like a female. Then they should have other footage of that person. Do they have it? I have to research that. Of him, Luigi, like walking in and out to his room. There's cameras in the hall. Like, do they have all of that or no? Because if it's just that one picture, sorry, I don't believe it. A lot of stuff makes no sense to me. Yeah. The 300 analysts who attended the investor conference were due to convene in a ballroom at the Hilton Hotel next to where Brian Thompson was executed. The message the defendant was so eager to broadcast was spelled out in his October 22nd, 2024 Manifesto entry. In that entry, he wrote of revolutionary acts and how to achieve them while garnering their support of the public at large. Clearly, defendant was seeking to bring about a revolution in healthcare and to abolish health insurance companies. Hooray! I'm not saying that he should have, killing and taking someone's life is a whole nother conversation, but like, we do actually need like a revolution in healthcare and to abolish health insurance companies. Not us working for health insurance. Like, what exactly did the cashier it was him? Yeah. I want to hear from McDonald's. Yeah, McDonald's. Where you at? Someone brilliant. I thought he was videoed in the hostel during that actual PPE time. I don't think so. He's taking the blame for somebody else. They set him up. For one of my theories or conspiracies was that Luigi, was smart and he had connects in the CIA in like Saudi Arabia. I don't know why I think this. This is like what I thought. I said this to one of my moms. I'm like, could it have been that he was part of a bigger thing and they wanted to pin it on him, and or he was involved with a bigger thing or a bigger group that was going to discover and expose these CEOs who could be basic little human CEOs, or they could be child traffickers. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. Allegedly, we don't know anything. Anybody could be anything they want. It's not far-fetched at all. I'm with you. I'm over here just like going off on conspiracies. We like the facts. Don't get me wrong. Let's see. While this is of no solace to Mr. Thompson, his family, or his friends, the assassination was not personal to Mr. Thompson, but rather a necessary part of the defendant's evil plan to usher revolutionary changes to the delivery of healthcare in the United States through the barrel of a GUN. Defendants' expressed ideological ambitions readily distinguishes this case from the kind of quote-unquote normal street crime that the Morales court said did not fall within the meaning of an act of terrorism. The Morales decision explained that an analogous federal statute extending federal jurisdiction to certain crimes committed against Americans abroad with intent to coerce, intimidate, or retaliate against a civilian population was not meant to reach normal street crimes, such as drive-by shootings, robberies, or personal vendettas. Morales therefore held that when one gang commits crimes against another gang, this falls in the category of normal street crime that the terrorism statute did not intend to punish. Another fundamental difference between Morales and the defendant's crime is that the gang's crime had personal motives, separate and apart from the purported effect on the neighborhood. The murder in Morales was committed out of animus towards the other gang. This is a far cry from the defendant, who had no reason other than his terroristic purpose to kill Brian Thompson. Okay, if Luigi was planning to create havoc in a civilian population, he didn't take anyone else out. He literally walks by a lady at the Starbucks as he's going to shoot Brian Thompson. Like, if this was actually, I think he would have just took everyone out in his way, no? And then he runs down the street, does all of this stuff, goes to the McDonald's, drops the cell phone. Did he unalive anyone or hurt anyone then? How is that terroristic? He didn't hurt any civilians. I don't know. His housemates and Wyatt all seem intelligent as well. Something with how suicides are made to look like accidents. Epstein. Defendant's sensational assassination of Brian Thompson at the annual investor conference was certainly not a normal street crime. It was not a robbery, as the defendant did not steal Brian Thompson's Rolex watch after calmly sauntering over to his body to make sure that the assassination was successful. Nor can it be said to be the product of a personal vendetta, since there was no evidence that the defendant knew Brian Thompson. Smart leaders wouldn't write a manifesto snitching on yourself. Oh my gosh, that's what I was saying, gas mask. I'm like, he literally put all his secrets in this manifesto, and I'm just like, no. Did Osama bin Laden have a manifesto? Now that was an error. I think I get in trouble for saying that name, or no, on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe that's on the table now. Defendant demonstrated in his manifesto that he was a revolutionary anarchist who would usher in a better healthcare system by killing the CEO of the fourth largest company in the U.S. by market cap. This brutal, cowardly murder was a mechanism that the defendant chose to bring that revolution. Defendant's revolutionary anarchist ambitions thus differentiate him from the gang members who were carrying out the ordinary street crime. Wait. Why are they even, I get that they're using the case Morales, but the street gang to this? Was he in a gang? I don't understand the connection. They keep changing the definition of these words to fit political agendas. Yeah. Next, defendant claims that the New York legislature did not intend to apply the act of terrorism designation to cases where a shooting was directed at a single individual. The defendant does not, and indeed cannot cite any authority for that claim. Indeed, the plain language of the New York's terrorism statute does not require the defendant target more than one victim before being guilty of murder as a crime of terrorism. Wait, let me read that again. Does not require the defendant target more than one. Oh, okay. It is black letter law that, quote unquote, the governing rule of the statutory construction is that courts are obliged to interpret a statute to effectuate the intent of legislator, and when the statutory language is clear and unambiguous, it should be construed so as to give effect to the plain meaning of the words used. The plain meaning of the relevant statutes encompasses single victim murders. PL refers to a singular person when describing intentionally causing the death of a person or of a third person. And PL refers to a singular victim who is killed in furtherance of an act of terrorism as defined in PL. The plain language of the statute thus refutes the suggestion that murder as a crime of terrorism requires multiple victims. Yeah, street gangs. Furthermore, a reading of PL in its entirety underscores the legislative intent to punish murder as a crime of, even if there is only one victim of the murder. PL elevates what would otherwise constitute second-degree murder to first-degree murder if, prior to committing the killing, the defendant had been convicted of second-degree murder. Specifically applies to defendants who intentionally kill somebody after having so intentionally killed two or more additional persons within the state in separate criminal transactions within a period of 24 months when committed in a similar fashion or pursuant to a common scheme or plan. That's interesting. Thus, PL has sections of which reference multiple victims. The legislator's use of a singular victim in describing murder as an act of terrorism thus demonstrates that, contrary to the defendant's claim, a person can commit murder as an act of terrorism by assassinating a single person. Oh, I guess you can. This conspiracy, yeah, I know, the conspiracy. There's a lot on this case too. Yeah, so a lot of it we don't know. I'm just over here getting my panties in a bunch. Unless the roof started getting gangs, it's a heavy light, right? The legislating findings quoted in PL reinforce that conclusion. Those findings cite that 1994 murder of Ari Halberstam on the Brooklyn Bridge and the 1997 shooting on the top of the Empire State Building as two examples of conduct that the terrorism statute was meant to prohibit. In both cases, there was only one murder victim. In the Halberstam shooting, 3 people were injured, and in the Empire State Building shooting, 6 people were injured. I remember that. I have to look into that again. The inclusion of these two examples and PL makes abundantly clear that a defendant can commit murder as a crime of terrorism without killing more than one person. Indeed, the First Department's decision in People versus Morali emphasized that the statute focused on ideologically or politically motivated crimes that were intended to attract attention and intimidate a large public audience, regardless of the number of direct victims. It noted that there were relatively few direct victims of the Empire State Building shooting and the murder on the Brooklyn Bridge, but those crimes still constituted active terrorism because they were ideologically motivated and presumably were intended by the perpetrators to attract the attention of and intimidate a large public audience. So what are the protests right now? Aren't the protests attracting the attention of and intimidating a large public audience? The First Department has thus recognized that the murder and act of terrorism does not require mass casualties, and that the key question is whether the murder was intended by the perpetrator to intimidate a large population. Make it huge. Examination of the particulars of the 1997 Empire State Building shooting and the 1994 Brooklyn Bridge shooting, both of which are cited as examples of terrorism, confirms that understanding. On February 23, 1997, Ali Hassan Abu Kamal went to the Empire State Building's observation deck, took out a automatic pistol, and started shooting the bystanders. Okay, so that is hurting the civilians, or whatever they said, terrorism on civilians. Luigi did not shoot bystanders. He walked straight by a woman getting hello Starbucks, didn't even kill her, didn't even flinch, didn't even pay attention to her. This person started shooting bystanders. Is it the same thing? No. 100% protests are direct results of Rump getting pissy at Musk and ramping up. Sometimes I'm like, I should have never been born in this era. Like, this world is going to shit. But happy Friday. Happy Friday. Thank you for being here. At least we can have buzzballs and have fun. Always a good time here at Mellings. Hey, Kat Randall. Okay, let's see. I'm a little pissed off about this court document. I feel like justice for Luigi. He injured 6 and killed 1 before turning the gun on himself. The police later recovered papers entitled Charter of Honor, in which Abu Kamal spoke about his hatred for Americans, British people, French people, and Zionists, saying that they were responsible for turning our people, the Palestinians, homeless. Abu Kamal continued that his restless aspiration to murder as many of them as possible, and I have decided to strike at their own den in New York, at the very Empire State Building in particular. This is what's happening at the Empire State crime. Abu Kamal was like, kill all the Americans. Luigi never did that. Luigi just was trying to take out some corrupt dude. Not that I'm saying it's right, it's not. The shooting generated extensive media coverage, including news conference by Mayor Rudy Giuliani and FBI Special Agent in Charge, John O'Neill. The media reported that Abu Kamal blamed the U.S. for using Israel as an instrument against the Palestinians. And what is going on overseas there, huh? That's also brutal. The facts of the Empire State Building shooting demonstrate that 𝐈𝐶 was trying to reach a broad audience. The choice of the Empire State Building as the venue evidenced his intent that the shooting be publicized all over the country. 𝐈𝐶 must have assumed and intended that the note he had among his personal possessions would be discovered and publicized. In many respects, this is similar to our case. Is it? Come on now. Is it really? 𝐈𝐶 started shooting at bystanders. He's saying he hates Americans. Now that is a terroristic crime, in my opinion. Sure, the level of brutality, shooting someone with the pew pew in the back, okay, I get it. But it's not like Luigi went and set a plane on fire with a ton of people and then went and shot up the CEO. Like, it wasn't, I don't think it was an attack on civilians. Maybe disturbing the peace, but shit, people do that like every day. Who was yeah, not my America cat. Abu reminds me of the little monkey from that is the other guy's problem, not Luigi's. Right, Rudy is America's mayor. I don't think so. Corrupt me. Just kidding, just kidding. And stupidity. We have Rupert Murdoch to thank for Rumps. And post-Strawberry Moon hangover. Well, get ready because we're doing an after dark after this. 2016 should have never happened. Too many tools in the prosecutorial toolbox. In many respects, okay, so they say this is similar to our case. Both cases involved only one homicide victim. Our defendant, like 𝐈𝐶, carefully chose his location in order to attract massive amounts of attention while conveying a particular message. I know like this convention that Brian Thompson was attending was like a big thing, but unless we heard about it on the true crime channels or like, I don't know, somebody was going and they put it all over. Like, I didn't know there was a convention for the top people of the health insurance company. So I don't think that maybe because it was New York, but I don't think that had a lot of attention other than people involved. Because I'm pretty sure that convention was not open to the public. So our defendant, like 𝐈𝐶, had in possession various writings that set out his intent and motive, and our defendant, like 𝐈𝐶, had every reason to believe that his motivation would be publicized. Both murders were fueled by hatred. In the case of the Empire State Building, it was hatred of Zionists. In our case, it was that these parasites simply had it coming, according to Luigi. The 1994 Brooklyn Bridge shooting involved a similarly number of victims. On March 1st, 1994, a van carrying 15 youngsters, all Hasidic Jewish students at a Brooklyn yeshiva, was driving onto the Brooklyn Bridge when Rashid Baz, armed with multiple firearms, pulled up his car alongside the van, opened fire, hitting 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐫 in the head, thereby killing him. Baz then continued following the van while firing at it. In total, he killed 1 and injured 3. When arrested by the police, Baz said that the van had cut him off and that the driver had called him a fucking Arab. Claims refuted by other witnesses. Baz also falsely asserted that an occupant in the van fired at him with a gun. He eventually proceeded to trial and was convicted as charged. It was only in 2007, some 13 years after he murdered 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐫 and wounded three others, that he would admit he shot the van because the occupants were Jewish. Now that's a hate crime. Despite the fact that only person died as a result of Baz, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right, those words, Baz's attack, and despite the fact that Baz had not yet admitted his anti-Semitic motives for the attack, the legislative findings codified in 2001 cited the Brooklyn Bridge shooting as an example of that. PL Article 490 was designed to punish. The case's inclusion in the legislative findings demonstrates the significance of context targeting a van full of yeshiva students in a traditional Hasidic garb and the lack of any other precipitating event in assessing the terroristic intent behind the attack. In the present case, the evidence of terroristic intent is significantly stronger because, among other things, defendant expressly declared his intent in his manifesto and the ballistics evidence. Deny, depose, what was it? Defy? Is that terroristic? I don't know. Maybe I'm just, yeah. It's fair to assume he's a relative if someone mistreated by insurance. Yeah, that was one of the theories I heard before, that he had family. Okay. Let's talk for a minute. So I did hear before that his family was somehow involved with care homes or like long-term care facilities, and that had something to do with insurance. That's one thing I heard. Just Melly's things here, nothing is facts. Where the facts are right here in the paper. This is the document according to the government, the Fed. But anyways, it was denied, delayed. Was it? Oh, I thought it was defy. Not me starting my own words over here. Anyways, so I did hear that he did have some involvement. I also heard something about him being a professional working with bigger groups, and that's why people wanted to take him out, aka the government, and why they set him up. Maybe it was him. Maybe he did do it because he was, trying to do what they're saying he was. I don't know. I just wouldn't necessarily always believe the government. But that's just my opinion. Don't listen to me. I'm just a crazy little girl over here covering true crime. It's a lazy story, in my opinion. You mean do you think he's guilty, Kat Randall? Delay, deny, depose. I can't say that I don't like it. Right, so drop the terror BS and let this man stand in court and be judged by his peers and hopefully walk free, having done his community service. And that's the thing. Is yeah. Let the jury hear. Let it be public access to us. In the plain language of the statute and legislative intent behind it established that the deliberate assassination of a single individual can constitute murder as an act of terrorism. Defendants' acts targeted various civilian populations within the meaning of the terrorism statute. Okay, this is going to be good because I'm over here talking about how did he actually target civilian population or just a group of wealthy individuals who, I don't know. I start every case not guilty. Good one, Pat Randall. PL provides that for purpose of PL, an act of terrorism means activities that involve a violent act or acts dangerous to human life that are in violation of the criminal laws of the state and are intended to 1, intimidate or coerce a civilian population, 2, influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion. Pay attention because you need to tell me if you think he meets all of these. And 3, affects the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping. Defendant claims that the term, quote unquote, civilian population as referenced in the Terrorism Act cannot encompass the 400,000 employees of UnitedHealthcare. Defendant's motion stated that he cites the First Department decision in Morales without explanation as to why the decision precludes the law's protection for UHC employees or other employees of the health insurance companies. But in that decision, the First Department explained that the direct legislative history of the Anti-Terrorism Act does not focus on the meaning of the terms of civilian population in Article 490, but it is clear from the legislative findings set out in penal law that the legislator intended to address 6 extraordinary criminal acts perpetrated by the purpose of intimidating a broad range of people. Nothing in this discussion would preclude protection for the 400,000 employees of UHC or the hundreds and thousands of people employed by other health insurance companies in the United States. New York courts have not tried to define the minimum size of a civilian population. Wait. Okay, so wait, they're saying that he committed this crime against a civilian population, but then it says New York courts have not tried to define the minimum size of a civilian population. So so how do they know that he did this against the civilian population if they don't even know what the minimum size that they consider a civilian population, technically? Don't they have statistic people for that? I don't know. But if they did, a group of hundreds of thousands of civilians would surely suffice. Defendant does not explain why hundreds and thousands of health insurance employees located all over the U.S. do not constitute a civilian population entitled to the statute's protection. Equally unavailing is defendant's attempt to limit the protection of the terrorism statute to civilian populations defined by gender, race, nationality, ethnicity, or religion. For starters, there's nothing in the plain language of the statute that would support a narrow reading of civilian population. Furthermore, the First Department explained in Morales that the statute punishes those with an intention to create a perversely terrorizing effect on people living in a given area, directed either to all residents of the area or to all residents of the area whose members of some broadly defined class, such as gender, race, nationality, ethnicity, or religion. Thus, any broadly defined class deserves the protection of the terrorism statute. To be sure, Morales listed gender, race, nationality, ethnicity, and religion as examples of such classes, but it did not suggest that these were the only types of protected groups, nor would it make sense to limit the types of protected groups. The legislator left the wording of the statute general, not wanting to have to predict what future movements may choose murder to intimidate a civilian population or to influence government policy by coercion. In any event, the United States Courts of Appeals for the 11th Circuit has recognized, at least implicitly, that certain categories of healthcare employees or healthcare recipients can constitute civilian populations for the purposes of anti-terrorism statutes. In the United States versus Jordy, that the court held that the defendant's efforts to bomb abortion clinics were designed to intimidate, coerce a civilian population. Yeah, I agree. That's more like it. Like coerce a civilian population. Yeah, bombing an abortion clinic. Faux show. We could all grow bushy eyebrows and claim we did it. That's a good one. Presumption of innocence, a key to healthy justice. I'm upset for Luigi. I think we need to hear what he has to say. I think there would be more details about his mother's struggles with insurance, and that was supposed to be basis for the overall crime anyway. Am I crazy? No, I heard something about that, Lexi, too. I thought his mom had turned him in. No, I don't think so. We were innocent until proven guilty. If we're innocent until proven guilty, why go to jail for? Right? Right, Lexi, but that info isn't necessarily public, but will it come out? Will it come out? Hey, Santiago. Defendants' limited interpretation of these types of civilian populations that are deserving of protection cannot be squared with the legislative history indicating that the acts seeks to punish those engaged in deliberate assassinations designed to prevent from their exercising rights. Next, defendant claims that whether or not the UnitedHealthcare workers can qualify as a civilian population, there was no intent on his part to intimidate or coerce them. So there you go. He said it. To reach this absurd position, the defendant suggests that the court turn a blind eye to defendant's stated intentions in his manifesto. His deliberate assassination of the UHC CEO in front of the location of the annual investor conference, his marking on the ballistics, and the natural and probable consequence of his acts. The grand jury was in no way required to ignore all of those considerations when assessing whether there was reasonable cause to believe that the defendant intended to intimidate that civilian population. I don't think so. I don't think he was trying to do that. I think he was just trying to take, I don't know why, but maybe take Brian out. I don't know. No, this is Luigi Mangione. For starters, defendant states in his August 15, 2024 manifesto that his target is the health insurance industry as a whole. He also indicates that he has been researching UHC. His October 22nd, 2024 screed talks of narcissistic rebellion against a deadly greed-fueled health insurance cartel, a broad threat against those deemed to be part of the so-called cartel. And in his letter to the FBI, the defendant states that these parasites simply had it coming, and that these mafiosos have simply gotten too powerful. These attacks on UHC and the health industry as a whole speaks volumes about defendants' intent to intimidate those working in the industry. Defendant's intent to intimidate UHC workers is further evidenced by the crime itself. He killed the CEO at the annual investor conference in broad daylight on a busy Manhattan street. Any UHC worker would reasonably worry that if defendant could kill the CEO, he could do the same to an employee lower on the corporate run. Wrong? Do they mean right? And to make the point perfectly clear, his target audience's defendant wrote words on the shell casings and cartridge, "Den depose delay," as an attack on the healthcare insurance industry, as a warning to anyone associated with it what their final fate would be. If he influenced a civilian population, I think we would have heard of more CEOs being taken out. Defendant may be presumed to intend the natural and probable consequences of his act. Defendant, sorry. And then the days after the assassination, those consequences predictably included doctors at UHC quitting out of fear, call specialists receiving death threats, and employees refusing to sign their names to denial letters out of fear of retribution. Defendant thus got what he sought. By deliberately assassinating the CEO in the name of the revolutionary anarchism, he put employees in the crosshairs of other revolutionary anarchists similarly disposed. But defendant is nevertheless seeking credit for not choosing to bomb the headquarters of UHC, thereby killing more innocents. You don't get a trophy or any kind of absolution under New York's anti-terrorism law because you only killed one innocent person and not others. Why is the government so pithy? You don't get a trophy or any kind of absolution under New York's anti-terrorism law because you have only killed one person and not others. In sum, it is clear that the defendant's intent and one natural and probable consequence of his bloody, cowardly act was to intimidate and coerce UHC workers and other workers in the healthcare industry. I work in the healthcare industry now. I was not intimidated or coerced, judge. I, Melly from Mellyverse, was not intimidated or coerced, and I do business with insurance, healthcare companies all day long. All day long. So no, I was not intimidated or coerced. I deserve a trophy. Just kidding. Is that downloaded from his phone? Yeah, keeping tabs. My speculation is way too high on it. Oh, I wonder who Luigi was on the phone with before the shooting. He had a cousin, a politician, that he was inside the conference and called Luigi to tell him details about the CEO's moves. Yeah, people think that there was someone else involved. Defense will argue the conference was the only time the CEO's movements were known. No. Because if he was a professional terrorist, wouldn't he know all of this? Wouldn't he have been stalking him, knowing his address, following his kids, harassing the wife? Or no? Maybe not. It seems like a fast and loose investigation. Yeah. Okay, let's see. We're only going to read half of this because it's 80 pages. So we're going to read half of it tonight and then half tomorrow over coffee. We're going to have a little breakfast date, you and I. Okay, let's see. Furthermore, those were not the only civilian populations targeted by the defendant. Defendant rejoiced that he could commit this assassination at the investor conference, calling it a windfall. As defendant put it, after you whack the CEO at such conference, all those analysts and institutional investors who came to be wooed by insurance execs, the opportunity is snuffed out in an instant. Instead, the company becomes hot topic. Perhaps best to invest elsewhere and let that one cool off. That's allegedly what's in the diary. The investors referenced by defendant were about to convene inside the ballroom adjacent to where Brian Thompson was executed. Clearly, this assassination was designed to send a message to them that there's life-threatening danger in investing in a business whose CEO can be executed on a public street. Thus, there are at least 3 groups of civilian populations that the defendant intended to intimidate. Oh, here we go. UHC employees, other workers in health insurance industry, and investor and institutional analysis. I need to see a bunch of these people, other workers in health insurance industries all over the US, and then investors and institutional analysis. I need to see them on the stand testifying that they feel fear, and that they were coerced, and that Luigi Mangione changed their life. Supposedly the CEO is getting death threats. He was. The wife said he was getting death threats before he got shot. Was it Luigi? I don't think so. I think there was a bigger group trying to take Brian Thompson out. For what reasons? We can save that for the after dark. I don't know. I think some of these professionals and institutional analysts are not really analysts. The testimony of the UnitedHealthcare Group executive in the grand jury only 2 weeks after the murder demonstrates the tidal wave of hatred unleashed by the defendant's assassination of Brian Thompson. There has been more of the same coercion and intimidation since then, and if the court permits, the people will provide evidence of such subsequent intimidation at trial to demonstrate the results of the defendant's despicable crime. Okay, so they're saying what I just said. The people will provide evidence. So I need people to walk all up in there and be like, oh my God, I can't work at my job because I'm so scared. Because I work for the healthcare industry. It hasn't even crossed my mind, I guess. I should file for like disability. I can't work because Luigi Mangione took out UHC executive, and that affects my ability to work. I wonder if that's legit. Defendant's terroristic intent need not be posted or advertised, answering the defendant's motion. Defendant claims that even if some of his writings expressed a desire to generate massive amounts of publicity and to intimidate large swaths of population, he cannot be charged with the act of terrorism because he did not publish those writings. If this were indeed the law, then many, if not most, of acts of terrorism could not be prosecuted. Under his usual theory, 9/11 could not have been prosecuted absent Osama bin Laden's public announcement of his motive. Oh my God, how funny that I brought up that name earlier. And Luigi's bringing it up here. And so claiming the defendant appears to conflate the definition of an act of terrorism with the definition of making a terroristic threat under PL 49.20. The latter crime punishes a defendant who threatens to commit or cause to be committed a specific offense, thereby causes a reasonable expectation or fear of the imminent commission of such offense. In that crime, the threat itself is the actus reus, and actus reus, whatever. What does that mean? In fact, the threat itself is, let's look it up. Without the threat being made known to others, there can be no possible reasonable expectation or fear of the imminent commission of such offense. Actus reus. Oh, reus. Action or conduct which is constituent element of crime, as opposed to the mental state of the accused. Wait, in simple terms. Translated from Latin, actus reus means guilty act. Oh, okay, guilty in mind. Now, why are these two phrases important in the criminal law? The answer is because these two phrases describe the two basic elements the government needs to prove in order to convict of a person. Okay. Did you bring your notebook? Okay, let's see. But when it comes to murder as an act of terrorism, the actus reus is an actual murder. Thus, the issue of intent to coerce the civilian population or to influence government policy by murder is solely an issue of proof that can be established by inferring intent from the act alone, by identifying statements, whether made publicly or privately, revealing the actor's intent, or by assessing the act's natural and probable consequences. In any event, even assuming, likely counterfactually, that the defendant did not intend for his manifesto to become public, his manifesto makes clear that he still intended for his actions to convey his message. He boasted that by carrying out the assassination of Brian Thompson at the investor conference, his point would be made in the news headline, Insurance CEO Killed at Annual Investors Conference, and his message would become self-evident. If defendant now claims that those messages somehow did not capture his intent, then he can make the argument to the jury at the trial. Yeah. I would like to hear that at the trial, prosecutor. That's why I quit pre-law. Yeah, make sure you guys are taking notes. Finding people not screwed over by insurance would be a difficult task, Without nurses, what would doctors do? Nothing. It's like the pharmacist. Without pharmacy techs, what would the pharmacist do? Nothing. But advice on, reactions of mixing, I don't know, your Xanax with an Oxy, something like that. Latin, but can read med terminology. Okay, similarly, it is absurd for the defendant to try to shift all responsibility for intimidating civilian populations onto law enforcement on the theory that law enforcement publicized certain aspects of the circumstances surrounding the murder. The argument ignores the elephant in the room. Acts of terror are specifically designed to draw public attention to the act. When you write about the beauty of whacking the CEO at the investor conference and what the headlines would be, you are hardly in position to complain about the press coverage and fear you generated by deliberately gunning down a father of two as he walked down a midtown street. Draw public attention to the act. I mean, it did. When you write in your manifesto that the quote unquote shooting brings the light to the event itself, you make clear that you yourself are seeking the publicity your attorney now complains about. Wow. In this letter to the FBI that was recovered by Altoona police, defendant wrote that the spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and the to-do list that illuminate the gist of it. The same person who told the FBI that he had locked down his technology thus encouraged investigators to consult his manifesto in a calculated move to spread his bloody plan near and far. As he and his wife are estranged. Oh. They've been estranged, right? I think that's what I heard too. Anyone who works in the health industry had to have been intimidated by three words: den, delay, and depose, discovered by the police on the ballistics evidence. They could rightly fear copycat killers who, reading about the case, would follow in the footsteps of defendant and executing individuals because they didn't like the company they worked for. Defendant wrote these words for the specific purpose of spreading violence and hate. Spreading violence and hate. Again, what's going on with the protests? Isn't that violence and hate? Defendant intended to influence government policy or to affect the conduct of the unit of a government. As to defendant's intent to influence governmental policy or to affect the conduct of a unit of government, defendant states that the deliberate assassination of Brian Thompson cannot be the basis of government influence since Brian Thompson is not part of the governmental unit. Defendant's claim is contrary to law and logic. Wait. Yeah, Brian Thompson is not part of any government unit that we know of. I kind of am with Luigi on that part, but of course, they say no, it's contrary to law and logic. Logically, the assassination of the CEO of the largest health insurance company in the US, a company with millions of subscribers and 400,000 employees, is certainly likely to influence the policies of government by intimidation or coercion and affect the conduct of government by murder. This is such bullshit. The wife could afford to get someone whacked. That is fact. Where's she's at? Where's she at? The wife could have, yeah. Defendant, in planning the assassination, described it as an act of the revolutionary anarchism. The plain meaning of those words connotes challenge to government and authority. Thus, defendant's self-described intent was to influence government by murder in order to effect change to the healthcare system in the United States. He need not target a public official if the assassination of his chosen target results in intimidation or coercion by government of murder. Furthermore, the plain words of the statute do not require that the victim of the homicide be a government official. Application of the rules of the statutory construction that the plain words of the statute govern, and also that a statute must be read as a whole, demonstrate that the legislator did not intend to limit the class of protected victims to government officials. Both PL and PL specifically reference intentionally causing the death of a person. Thus, the plain words of the statute do not require the murder to be of a government official. Furthermore, has specific provision charging murder in the first degree for public servants, including police officers, peace officers, firefighters, first responders, employees of correctional facilities. The legislator could have chosen to require that the people prove that the victim of a murder as a crime of terrorism be an employee of the government unit. It did not. For that reason, the grand jury was in no way precluded from finding reasonable cause to believe that Brian Thompson's assassination was done to coerce governmental action on health insurance. I'm reading what you guys are saying. We should find out. I want to know her every move and phone records. Me too, Lexi. Did the government admit to having a hand in this? I would not put anything past the government. Yo. The Second Circuit in Lynn versus Arab Bank? I feel bad. What is that word? Found that the targeting of civilians by 3 suicide bombings could constitute coercion of both a civilian population and a governmental unit at the same time. The suicide bombing is unquestionably a violent act whose apparent intent is to intimidate civilians. Yeah. The deliberate assassination of Brian Thompson is no different. It is clear from the defendant's stated intent of ushering in revolutionary change to the healthcare that the assassination of the CEO of the country's 4th largest company by market cap, which does business with the government by providing insurance in form of Medicare and Medicaid, was committed to affect government policy. Ding, 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 ding. I think anyone doing business with Medicare and Medicaid is government, right? Defendant's own word in his manifesto made clear that he was trying to coerce and intimidate government officials by this assassination. He used the words revolutionary anarchist to excuse a targeted killing of a civilian, as an anarchist is a person who rebels against any authority, established order, or ruling power, a person who believes in, advocates, or promotes anarchism or anarchy, especially one who uses violent means to overthrow the established order. Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Per Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Anarchism is defined as a political theory holding all forms of government authority to be unnecessary and undesirable, and advocating a society based on voluntary cooperation and free association of individuals and groups. Defendant's description of himself as a revolutionary anarchist while plotting Mr. Thompson's assassination thus demonstrates his intent to affect government policy or conduct. Okay, we did it. We read half of this. Tomorrow morning, we're going to finish the rest of it, and then there's journal entries. So I really wanted to get to them tonight, but we just got through 40 pages. So that's pretty awesome. I think this is a really good document. I'm really into it, and I can't wait to read the journal entries tomorrow. So I'm going to end it there, stop it at this part. Oh my God, half. Yeah, that was half, 40 pages. So we have 40 more. So I plan to do that over like an early live tomorrow, like breakfast, brunch time. I have a lot of lives planned tomorrow. So we have to make sure that we don't get too crazy on Melly After Dark. But thank you for being here. Yeah, okay. So you guys better be here tomorrow and finish this with me because we need to get through it. We're like the Luigi professionals now. And I'm going to do that, Lexi. Was it Lexi who said, I want to know? I'm a deep dive the wifey. I think we should look into it. Huh? It's worth it. I like to deep dive a lot of shit. I have so many lives and deep dives. I can't keep up because there's so much crime. No, Karen Reed, I'm behind, but we're going to get caught up this weekend. We're going to do a Karen Reed marathon. And then tomorrow we're going to read, I'm going to get caught up on the Diddy. I have missed 3 days. So we're going to get caught up on that. I did a deep dive that I want to try to get to tomorrow. We're going to finish this in the morning. And then I have 2 other cases that I already have lives ready for. So I'm planning to be live all weekend. But definitely this is going to be my first live tomorrow for the day, is finishing this document. So please make sure you come back, turn on your notifications. I will probably drop the Discord link on the Melly After Dark for the cool people to come join. Isn't there any new info? Yeah, I think Karen Reed, they had like closing arguments. I'm behind, so don't tell me anything. Don't tell me. Hey, Lovey Brown, thanks for subbing. Says subbed up. Thank you for this content. Thank you for subbing up. I appreciate that. Okay, so Brian Thompson tomorrow. We'll continue this. Luigi. And then we'll continue. No spoilers. Yeah, no spoilers. I really want to try to get to it. I got to go to bed. I've been away too long. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry that you'll miss out on the Melanie After Dark Storm, but you're a member, so you'll always get to replay it tomorrow. Members get to replay. Thank you guys for being here. I will see you tomorrow for more True Crime Lives. Tonight we do After Dark. I will see you shortly over there on that live. Thank you for being here. Make sure you, like I said, hit the like button, subscribe, join the fam. I appreciate you guys. Dodge, thank you for gifting and giving memberships to new people and returning users. Tea time. I got the buzz balls. I got the biggie. The big. Yeah, I thought of you guys. I was like, you know what? It's mainly After Dark tonight. I'm gonna get the big one. Okay, I'll see you guys over there in a little bit. Thank you for being here. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out.